Today's first reading recalls when the 12 tribes of Israel came together to recognize David as their king and then pledge their allegiance to him. And much later, the Jews of Jesus' time were under King Herod and the Roman Empire. That's a big difference. They were in a hopeless, miserable state, and so they would look back to their past glory, a time when they had the great King David as their shepherd king. Now, he had his faults, but they were one with him. Despite all his human weaknesses, God had used him to unite the separate 12 tribes into one powerful kingdom. But under Herod and the Roman occupation, the suffering people not only looked backward to those past moments of glory, but they also looked ahead to the day when the Messiah would come, a David-like king to deliver them. And they had this hope that God would once again do what God had done in the past, deliver them from their oppressors. Where was this long-awaited king? How would they recognize him when he did come? Well, he came, and he was certainly disguised in the most unexpected and even repulsive way, hanging on a cross. And to further humiliate and mock the people, Pilate had placed over Jesus' cross the inscription, "Here's the King of the Jews." How did this king come to get to this crushing place? Well, since back in the month of June, when Luke told us that Jesus firmly resolved to proceed to Jerusalem, we all have been traveling with Jesus and his disciples to the holy city. And as Jesus traveled with us and the disciples, he performed miracles, he teaches them about prayer and the cost of discipleship, sends them on a mission, meets resistance from religious leaders, predicts his own passion, and gives warning to the coming crisis, and encourages them all to have faith and persevere until the Son of Man returns. And yet, when they get to Jerusalem, and what he has predicted comes true, he's captured and crucified, they are completely shocked and crushed with disappointment. And so they scatter. In Luke's version of the execution, those who are there at the end, they're onlookers, jeering soldiers, sneering religious leaders, and at a distance, his friends and the women who accompanied him from Galilee. Oh, and also with him, 2 crucified criminals hanging on either side of him. All in all, that is a very lonely throne and powerless cross for the King of the Jews. Kings and queens who are not just figureheads, they exert power over their subjects. It's a top-down kind of power, like the power that we have over things and animals. And when we call Jesus our King, there are some people who believe, well, that's the kind of power that he could exert at any time that he chooses. But take a look. Take a look today. After Mass, stop up and take a look. Where is that power? Why doesn't he exert it and get off the cross, smash his enemies, and declare the arrival of the kingdom. Instead, if we want to see our king, we're supposed to turn our gaze to this horrible spectacle and see him pinned to a crossbeam. So what's going on here? Jesus, the King, is showing us another kind of power that comes from the cross. St. Paul tells us that Jesus emptied himself. He put aside divine choices and power to humble himself and become human, and even accepting a lowly death on the cross. Jesus' power is not exerted by force, but instead by inviting us to become one with him. He is offering us and offering himself to join in a relationship that is strong even when it appears to be weak. We all get to share in his power. It is a power to heal and forgive. It is a power to be his servants in his ministry of reconciliation. In our relationship with Jesus, we become strong, not assuming power and rule over people, but by sharing his life in our relationship with him. In accepting the cross, Jesus has entered into a solidarity with those who are on the lowest levels of society. The crucified Jesus is a sign that he is offering himself to everyone, especially those who are considered the lowest, not by forcing himself on us, but by giving himself to us in weakness and apparent defeat. While other earthly rulers and monarchs and even some religious authorities exert themselves on us by asserting their power over us in order to achieve their own purposes, Jesus' power is shown in his service to us and his willingness to lay down his life and give up everything for us. And we are free to accept or reject that rule. He will never force us. He does not want us to be his subservient subjects. He wants us to be his friends. We who have accepted his reign live as brothers and sisters in this kingdom, a kingdom that is already present right now in this world. And this world tempts us daily to choose the rule of other powers and principles, greed and violence, indifference, cruelty, aggression. As a result, accepting Jesus' rule is not a one-time act, but it needs to be renewed each and every day by the deliberate choices that we make. Being members of the reign of God under Jesus' kingship, that can be so discouraging at times. So much of his reign is incomplete or fragmentary in this world. A quick glance at the headlines will tell all of you what I'm saying is absolutely right. But it is our job as baptized Christians to make Jesus' peaceable kingdom a reality in this life. That's our job, folks. Not only in our surrounding world and in our community, but also inside every single one of us. And so we live in hope And we return every single week to receive the nourishment that we need. The Word of God and the food of Jesus to live in the reign of God, not just as loyal servants, but as brothers and sisters of our King, Jesus.
Folks, before we take a moment to profess our faith together, I want to speak to you. Let me take this time now just to bring you just some thoughts I had, because I'm sure many of you heard the news about Bishop Hubbard looking to seek to be released from his priestly promises, that is, let's say, to no longer be considered bishop or priest. And I heard that news on Friday night, and many of you did too at that time. And I was just so caught by that, I didn't know what to think. I needed some time to think about things, and I still need some time to think things through. But a few things have happened that I want that kind of helped me to come to a few things. I wanted to share some of my feelings with you about this. I wanted to mention that people have said to me in the last couple of days when I've been around town, people have asked me what I thought about this. People have, I said I need more time to think about this. People have said, you know, Father, I think maybe that he's doing this because he thinks it might help him with some of these civil court matters that are being brought against him. Or it might help him or hurt him in different ways about these things. And like there's a calculation going on as to how this might work out, how this might impact things. I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think there's a legal calculus in this at all. I had the chance to read Bishop Hubbard's statement. It was like a letter, and maybe some of you have seen that too. If you haven't, and maybe you were looking at the news article in the Times Union Online, if you were to go back to that Times Union Online article, you can click on that, and they have a copy of Bishop Hubbard's statement on there. It's not very long. You know what I mean? And it's pretty direct, and he's pretty direct in his language. And one of the things that came across in there, he said that he'd been a priest for nearly 60 years. And because of what's going on right now with the civil suits, in our diocese, if a priest is identified in a civil suit like this, he is unable to function ministerially, okay? It's like he's suspended, if you will. So Bishop Hubbard's saying, I'm 84 years old. These cases take a long time to resolve themselves. I've been unable to minister to people, and really, he can't preside at Mass. He can't present himself as bishop. He can't dress as a priest. He was saying, if he were released from his promises, if he were no longer considered bishop or priest, then he would be able to serve others. And I'm thinking to myself, he's taking it back to his baptismal status, which is something we all share. And something that Deacon Mike had told me, we chat from time to time about, say, ideas we have for homilies on these weekends when we come here with you. And over the weekend, Deacon Mike was telling me some things about his homily. I started thinking, you know, there's something about our baptismal call that's in the middle of this. Now, I'm not trying to get you to change your mind about how you feel about Bishop Hubbard, whether you support what he's doing or you don't, or how you feel about him. I'm not trying to change any of that. I'm thinking, in this moment, with this going on. And in this moment, we hear these readings about Jesus who gives everything away. He's on the cross. He's humiliated. He's dying. He gives it all away for us, out of love, out of service. What does that say to us as baptized people to think about what are we called to do for one another? Where is love for others for us? Where is service for others for us? How do we make that real in our lives? Maybe we're not called to be on a cross and die, but each day, when we renew our commitment to Jesus, are we willing to live as he lived, serve as he served, love as he loved? And maybe that's something that helps me just to understand a little more what's going on with everything around us right now. I know in the midst of my prayers, I spend time praying for the survivors of abuse. I pray for them and for their families, the people who love them and care for them. I pray for those who did these things to them, because they have open hearts and change. I pray for those who have been accused wrongfully and feel they live their lives in shame and darkness. I pray for all of us, because for better or for worse, the image of all of us are on the cross too. We didn't seek this out. This is happening around us. This is not how we're choosing to live, but we're on the cross too. There are so many people for us to pray with and pray for these days.